Good morning, everyone, and thank you for your time this morning. Today, I'd like to give you an idea of what it's like for nutritionists to conduct a holistic dietary assessment on a patient and the challenges faced when doing this. I'll take you through an example case study of a patient named Chris, including the dietary assessments involved and their validity. Recommendations for Chris's diet will be provided, along with ways to improve his dietary assessment to give us a more representative picture of his overall diet. Chris is a 23-year-old male who works full-time as a restaurant manager and lives with his partner and her family of 6. Part of his job involves opening the restaurant for breakfast, which means he wakes up at 4:30 a.m. most mornings, making it hard for him to eat breakfast. He's a very capable cook and has a personal interest in nutrition and health, but he doesn't cook as often as he would like to due to work and the fact that he lives with another family. Chris has never had any major medical issues. However, he does have anxiety and depression, which he takes SSRIs to treat, but his appetite is often reduced as a result. His reduced appetite has meant he's been underweight multiple times in the last 2 to 3 years. He's currently 65 kilos, however, and has a BMI of 19.4. placing him at the low end of the healthy weight category for his height of 183 centimeters. Due to his weight being on the low end of healthy, his waist circumference is not so relevant, but it is 73.5 centimeters. A total dietary assessment has been conducted for Chris, including a 24-hour recall, 3-day food record, and analysis of anthropometric measures. These results were then compared against current Australian guidelines, and based off these, practical recommendations for Chris's diet were given. Validity of the 24-hour food recall and 3-day food record are also discussed, along with the issues that Chris encountered and how these align with current evidence-based processes. In his 24-hour recall, Chris consumed 1 serve of vegetables, no fruit, 4 serves of white grain, 1.5 serves of lean meat, 3 serves of dairy, and just over 5 serves of discretionary foods. The results for each day of his 3-day food record were averaged across the 3 days for each food group, and were 4 serves of vegetables, no fruit, 3.5 serves of grain, 2.5 serves of lean meat, 2 serves of dairy, and 6 serves of discretionary foods. To make recommendations more streamlined and to reduce bias as much as possible, the results of the 4 days were averaged for each food group as well. The final number of serves for each food group that are best representative of Chris's diet are 3 vegetables, no fruit, 3.5 serves of grain, 2.5 serves of lean meat, 2.5 serves of dairy, and 6 discretionary foods. The recommended servings of each food group per day for a male Chris's age are 6 vegetables, 2 serves of fruit, 6 serves of grain, mostly whole grain, 3 serves of lean meat, 2.5 serves of dairy, and 0 to 3 serves of discretionary food. In order for Chris to meet the Australian nutritional guidelines, he should increase his intake of both fruit and vegetables by 2 serves each day, grain by 2.5 serves, and lean meat by half a serve. His dairy intake was as recommended. However, he could also benefit from reducing his discretionary foods by 3 serves each day. Chris really enjoys cooking. However, because of his work and other stresses, he doesn't cook during his work week. If Chris planned, shopped for, and prepared each of his meals for the week on the weekend, this would allow him to eat home-cooked meals regardless of what's going on in his busy life. If Chris was preparing home-cooked meals for the week, his fruit, vegetable, and lean meat intakes would naturally increase because he enjoys eating them, but he doesn't have time to cook them each day. This is also likely to reduce his discretionary food intake, as eating more home-cooked meals means he doesn't have to eat food from his work. It will also leave him more satisfied at night, which is when he consumes most of his discretionary food servings, as he will have eaten a well-balanced dinner. After discussing ways to increase Chris's grain intake with him, he agreed that he enjoyed eating toast for breakfast, and that it would be easy for him to take 2 slices of bread into work with him. He said he spends 15 minutes making and drinking a coffee after setting up the restaurant, and that he could make toast for his breakfast during this time as well. This would increase his overall grain intake by 2 serves each day, meaning he would only be eating half a serve less than what's recommended in the Australian Guide for Healthy Eating. It would also mean he is eating something for breakfast on work days, which would be highly beneficial for his appetite throughout the day. Another practical recommendation for Chris is to substitute some of his grain choices with whole grain options. He spoke about enjoying whole grain options, but choosing white alternatives due to the convenience of eating the same as other people in his household. He also said, however, it'd be very achievable for him to swap 4 serves of grain each day for whole grain options. This would mean he only has to purchase a loaf of whole grain bread each week in the groceries. Chris has a personal interest in nutrition, and so is highly educated in this area, along with being highly motivated to complete the dietary assessments as accurately as possible. This meant there was only a few issues encountered when recording and recalling information for the dietary assessments. One major issue, however, involved Chris working as a restaurant manager and eating a cafe meal from work for lunch every day. The fact that these meals were not prepared from home made it extremely difficult for Chris to determine the exact ingredients and quantities of these in his lunch each day. Having to record this information while at work and under high time pressure also made it difficult for Chris to be thorough in reporting his lunches. This is in line with current research regarding the validity of both 24-hour recalls and 3-day food diaries. 24-hour recalls rely highly on subjective memory, and because these are conducted at the end of the day, are exposed to effects of stress and exhaustion. Authors Castell, Sarah Mahem, and Rebus Barber concluded after their 2015 investigation that the dependence of 3-day food records on accurate descriptions of meals eaten outside the home is a major flaw to their validity. Participants aren't always aware of exact ingredients that they're consuming when they have not prepared the dish, which was exactly the issue Chris encountered with his work lunches. These results are based off a 24-hour food recall, a 3-day food record, anthropometric measures, and nutritional and lifestyle history. However, there are a few limitations to this current case study. Both 3-day food records and 24-hour recalls require patients to describe in detail the foods they have consumed for a specified length of time. Accuracy of information is always a limitation with regards to this nature of dietary assessment, and both have their advantages and disadvantages. Advantages of both the 24-hour recall and 3-day food records include the low costs associated, the small amount of time and resources involved, high response rates usually received, and their ability to be used amongst low socioeconomic populations. These are the reasons for 24-hour recalls and food records of varying lengths being the most widely used dietary assessment methods worldwide. These methods have also received high levels of criticism throughout scientific literature surrounding their validity, however. Food records are generally considered more accurate than 24-hour food recalls, as they don't require the participant to remember foods eaten earlier in the day. Instead, foods are recorded as they are eaten, lessening the likelihood of memory lapses impacting results. Because of this, recording of foods eaten over the course of 3 days is better generalizable to a person's diet than just 24 hours. Week-to-week variations and seasonal differences are not accounted for within 3 days, however, so multiple replications throughout the course of a year are usually recommended. The minimum number of food records recommended in in scientific literature is 2, but it's commonly recommended 4 to 5 be replicated over the course of a year. Authors Pereira, Araujo, Lopez, and Yoko conducted an investigation into how many 24-hour food recall repetitions were required to obtain accurate estimates of total dietary intakes among a cohort of 300 adults and 169 adolescents. Results found 7 replications were necessary to assess an individual's overall dietary intake, with 90% accuracy, due to the within-person variance present in people's diets. According to this, Chris's total dietary assessment would be more accurate if multiple 24-hour food recalls and 3-day food records were conducted to allow for variance in his diet. Chris's diet is highly variable, both throughout the course of each month and within the course of a year. This means the short time frame used in these dietary assessments is most likely not enough to make generalizations about Chris's overall diet. For example, during warmer months, Chris explained that he eats at least 2 servings of fruit per day. Yet in colder months, he only likes to eat it about once a week. This assessment has been conducted during winter, so recommendations include increasing fruit intake dramatically. But if it were summer, no change would be required. This seasonal variance in Chris's diet is not uncommon, and has been supported with scientific evidence, which highlights another potential implication of only conducting dietary assessments at one point in time. Authors Shah et al. Conducted an investigation amongst 94 working males, which tested the variation in diet between seasons using food records and assessment of biochemical markers. A statistically significant increase in meat, dairy, and particular nutrients was found in winter compared with summer, and was found to cause a slight increase to BMIs of participants. Authors concluded that dietary assessments should be conducted at least twice during the course of a year to account for significant variations in diet between seasons. Chris's dietary assessments were conducted only in winter, which according to this study is likely to have an effect on his results. Chris has been underweight a number of times throughout the last 2 to 3 years, and authors Shah et al. Found participants had higher BMIs during winter. According to this study, Chris's BMI is likely to drop a small amount in summer, which may lead him to slip into the underweight BMI category. He's currently sitting at 19.4, so a small reduction in meat and dairy intake may lead to a reduced weight and BMI. His total dietary assessment would benefit from conducting multiple 24-hour food recalls and/or 3-day food records throughout the year to make sure his weight doesn't drop too much in winter. Ideally, 5 dietary assessments would be conducted at varied intervals over the course of a year. However, with limited resources, twice would still be enough to improve accuracy of these results dramatically. Another variable discussed among scientific authors for its potential to affect results of both 24-hour recalls and 3-day food records in variation to diet as a result of increased awareness of eating. This variable was also relevant to Chris's case study and was likely to have impacted the overall accuracy of his total dietary assessment. Chris has struggled to eat a sufficient amount of food to meet his caloric needs for the last 2 to 3 years, during which he has been underweight at times. He discussed with me, after looking back on his experience completing the dietary assessments, that being more aware of his eating likely caused a subconscious increase in the amount of food he consumed. Authors Rebro, Patterson, Crystal, and Cheney conducted a study investigating changes to eating patterns amongst a cohort of 176 adults when completing a 4-day food record. Results found intakes of 7 out of 9 measured micronutrients were significantly lower on day 4 compared to day 1, and significantly less foods were eaten on day 4 compared to day 1. When subjects were interviewed regarding these results, It was most commonly reported that intake was varied to simplify the process of recording. The burden of recording each food item consumed over 4 days was found to have an effect on foods consumed in a cohort of motivated adults. Subjects also reported they felt compelled to choose healthier foods when completing the 4-day food record. This may also help explain reduced nutrients and food items, as the majority of people believed their health would benefit from losing weight. Although Chris does not aim to lose weight, these results are still relevant in his case, as he is trying to gain a small amount of weight. This study helped explain the subconscious urge which Chris described to eat larger amounts and pick healthier choices while completing the dietary assessments. It can be concluded from Chris's total dietary assessment that he is of healthy weight, but he is not consuming adequate nutrients each day. Among other recommendations mentioned, Chris's main goal should be to embrace his enjoyment of cooking more, to increase his intake of fruits, vegetables, lean meats, and grains. This should hopefully give Chris a slow, sustained weight gain so that he is comfortably within the healthy weight category for his BMI, rather than at the low end with 19.4. This should also prevent him from losing any weight during summer, which he's at risk of due to the seasonal variance in his diet. To improve the accuracy of recommendations for his diet, 2 dietary assessments should be conducted for Chris, one in winter and one in summer. This will help reduce bias of seasonality and overall variance in diet to assure Chris's weight stays stable. Thank you very much for listening.